welcome, Benjamin. Thanks for coming in today. This is the Melbourne Alcohol and Other Drugs Service, and I think that maybe the first thing that I should do is to introduce what it is that we do and possibly what it is that I do, and see if the reason that you've come in is going to be a good fit for you.
Great.
So at the Melbourne Alcohol and Other Drugs Clinic, we do harm minimisation, harm reduction processes around substance use, and to that effect we also work with a whole lot of other issues that you may have around your substance use. We incorporate family and friends and various other people into that process. I'm Iren, and I'm an AoD Support Worker here, and my specific job is to help you to, I guess, figure out what it is that you want to do with your substance use, and hopefully point you in a few directions and help to clarify some of the things in your head around your own substance use and how it affects your life.
Okay.
Does that sound like something you want to do?
It sounds like a great path.
All right, great. So I guess before we go too far, I just need to let you know that if you share anything with me, it stays confidential. A part of my duty of care is to make sure that you're safe. And so if any of the things that you share with me are about you hurting yourself or someone else, I'll have to talk to my supervisor. But apart from that, everything else is confidential.
Great. Good.
Okay?
Thank you.
Great. All right, so perhaps we could start by me just double checking your details just to make sure that everything's fine so that I can contact you. So you filled this in about a week ago on the phone. Has any of this changed for you? Is that still your address?
Yep, that's right.
Okay, so according to this, you're 59.
Yes.
Okay, do you want to...
Beatles, baby.
Do you want to tell me a little bit about why you decided to come to MAOD?
Okay. Do you want the short version or the...
We have a whole hour.
Okay, well, basically I was chucking along thinking life was going reasonably well.
Yep.
Had a job that I loved and a family that I loved, and then out of the blue my wife left me.
Okay.
And we subsequently got divorced.
How long ago was that?
That was 5 years ago.
Okay.
And then I kind of took that in my stride. Well, I thought I did, because I, was, just engrossed in my work. And then 2 years ago, I got made redundant.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear about that.
So things changed then quite dramatically, because
of course.
there was really limited purpose for what I was getting up for every day, and things just kind of went downhill from there.
Okay.
And so my consumption of alcohol increased, and which is against everything that I believe, because my father had been an alcoholic.
Okay.
And I'd not needed alcohol until that point really, and it's just gotten progressively bad, and I felt that I had to do something about it.
Okay. All right. So if I'm hearing this correctly, there's been quite a number of really significant life-altering changes that have occurred for you in the last 5 years.
More than what happened in the 30 years before, yeah.
Right. Wow, that's really tough.
Other than the birth of my children.
Of course, yeah. So, and you have how many kids?
3 children.
Okay, so you've got 3 kids. Any grandkids?
I do have grandchildren, to all 3 children.
Right, okay.
Yeah, but I don't get to see them anymore, really.
Right, because?
Well, what's happened is that, my wife left me from my best mate.
Oh, okay.
And so that was kind of a bit of a major crunch, that, I lost my best friend, which was my wife, and then I also lost my best mate.
Sure.
And as a consequence of that, they've become a unit, and because my children had a good relationship with both their mum and my best mate, they tend to gravitate towards them as a couple.
Sure.
So they've started to, the fabric of their lives is now surrounding those two,
of course,
versus including me. And I don't think it's a deliberate thing, but they tend to forget me. And
a natural progression, you're thinking.
Yeah. So I don't get to see my grandchildren as much as I used to, and I love them dearly. But I also don't necessarily feel that I'm the man that I was, so that I've got as much to
Right.
Of what's happened.
Okay. And that's kind of understandable, Benjamin. In everything that's happened to you over the last 5 years, you've taken some really big blows. You've lost, in your own words, you've lost 2 really close, important people in your life. Your wife, your best friend. And then, as a natural progress, a gravitation, if you like, towards a family unit, your kids tend to spend a bit more time over there than over here. So that in itself is a really significant, almost a grief-based issue, really, if we think about it. And I'll ask you in a moment if there was anything that you kind of did around that. But then we park that, and just a couple of years ago, you also lost a very significant part of your own life, something that gave you purpose, your job. Have you had counselling around any?
Well, at first I tried to seek understanding and guidance from my priest. I've always been religious, but not in a necessarily a physically practicing manner. But then I kind of lost my faith in people's integrity and honesty because it was my wife and my best mate. So I kind of lost faith in faith itself as well.
Of course.
So that was kind of all that I really kind of sought out. I had seen a psychologist, but I found that psychologists tend to listen, they don't talk, so there wasn't really a lot of guidance coming there either.
Okay.
I was very lost, I didn't know what to do, I was seeking direction.
Okay. And this was around the time that your wife left you?
Yeah.
Right. And so I guess seeing the psychologist didn't provide you with any particular answers?
No.
Were you put on any medication during that time?
I had previously been diagnosed with depression.
Okay. How long ago?
Years ago.
Okay.
Years ago. And I had been put on an antidepressant.
Okay.
But that had caused for me to have really large weight gain really fast.
Oh, okay.
And also
does that sometimes?
Yeah, and it also caused us thoughts of suicide. So
Okay.
I stopped taking those.
Okay.
I didn't feel comfortable and safe in taking them.
So were they prescribed by a psychiatrist or by a doctor?
By a psychiatrist.
Okay. And when you stopped taking them, did you stop taking them immediately, or did you have?
I just stopped taking them.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I just want to point out to you, just for future reference, that it's really quite dangerous to just go cold turkey on antidepressants. It can actually make you feel worse, and your suicidal thoughts can get worse, and all of those sorts of things. So I guess you dodged.
Probably made the experience even worse.
Yes, I would imagine so. So how did you feel about, so you didn't like the feelings that the antidepressants made you feel, so you came off those. How did you feel about seeing someone around the time for your depression?
I didn't have a problem with that at all, actually. I knew that I was in a dark place.
Right.
And I had been in a dark place ongoing for many years, but I'd hidden it really well.
Okay.
And it was a relief to be seeing someone, but then when it didn't work, it kind of compounded the depressive state.
Sure, of course, and I perfectly understand that. In a moment, I'm going to ask you some really in-depth questions. It feels like I need to get to know you a little bit better before we can start to think about what we can do with you. And I'd like to, as an AoD service, and as you've sort of spoken about your drinking, I'd like to ask you some questions around your drinking, but also a little bit more around your mental health. It sounds to me like you've struggled with depression and possibly even anxiety for a significant period of time.
Yeah, I think anxiety was mentioned there a few times, but I think I was so focused on the depression that I didn't really pay attention.
Right, okay. So, so if you don't mind, I've got a bit of a form that I'd quite like to go through with you. It will help me to begin to understand you a little bit more, and hopefully in the unpacking of some of this, we can start to think about where else we can go with this, and what else you would really like to do for yourself. Does that sound all right?
Yeah.
All right, so this is called a screening tool, a self-completion form, and you have the option of filling this in yourself, or we can fill this out together. Which would you prefer to do?
Oh, I'm happy to fill it out with you.
Okay. All right, so look, the first round of questions is really generic. It's just about what substances you're involved with. So you mentioned alcohol, cannabis,
No.
Amphetamines, methamphetamines.
I don't know what they are.
Ice, you might have heard that being mentioned on the street. MDMA, ecstasy, any of those sorts of products. Do you take prescription medication?
Only what I was prescribed.
Okay, so you're not on any heart medication or any of those sorts of things. Sedatives, do you need sleeping pills to get to sleep?
I have occasionally used them in the past. The doctors prescribed them.
Yep.
But not more regularly.
Okay. Any prescribed opioids like buprenorphine or methadone or heroin
No.
in the past?
No.
Any non-prescribed like pain medication?
I know that my brother has had issues with drugs throughout his life. He would have probably tried most of these.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But you're not
No.
that person. So significant pain medication like oxys or codeine, cocaine,
No.
Inhalants of any sort, petrol, glue, nanos.
No.
No.
It was round a lot of petrol in the job.
Okay, what do you do?
Fitter and Turner.
Oh, okay. Yes, I could see that. Any hallucinogens?
No.
What about, do you smoke?
Yeah, I do smoke.
Yeah. Are you a regular smoker?
I wouldn't call myself a regular smoker. I smoked when I was more social, but now that I'm not quite social anymore, I'm not really smoking.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just a few every now and then.
Yeah.
Do you take anything else like a lot of coffee or energy drinks?
No, not really.
No? And steroids? No? All right.
Just the alcohol.
Okay. So have you used any of the things that we talked about in the last 4 weeks?
No.
Apart from alcohol?
No.
Okay. All right. So the next set of questions is really about your health, well-being, your lifestyle. You said that you were made redundant about 2 years ago.
That's correct.
And you've just told me that you're a fitter and turner, so you worked with your hands?
Yeah.
Have you thought about being retrained?
Hadn't crossed my mind.
Okay. Do you want to work again?
Oh, God, absolutely.
Yeah?
Absolutely.
All right, so
I mean,
that's...
part of, the progression of getting to here is the fact that I haven't been able to get a job and get back to work.
Okay. All right, so that's something that we'll think about. So when did you leave school? At what level?
Oh, God, I was in high school to start a fitting and turning
apprenticeship. Okay. So would you have any issues with perhaps doing some further training or retraining?
No?
Okay.
As long as I don't mind oldies.
Oh no, the tree changes and the sea changes are very much part of that process these days. Do you own your own place?
Yeah, small apartment.
Okay, great. So you're not going to be at risk of homelessness or eviction?
Well, I don't know, it's hard to, live on the government's handouts and still pay all your utilities and everything. I don't know how people have to pay rent to it.
Okay.
I find it hard to do it.
Okay. All right, so we'll look into that. There may be some kind of social help that we can... You're on Centrelink?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not old enough for the pension.
Well, I think we can do better than that. I genuinely do. I think that will be one of the things that we can talk about later on. Have you ever been arrested?
No.
Have you ever been violent?
No.
Have you ever had violence perpetrated?
Yeah, my father was a violent man.
Okay. So, regular, ongoing?
Yeah, he's an alcoholic violent man.
Okay. So you spent a lot of your life having violence perpetrated upon you?
Yeah, well, I was fending him off so that my little brother didn't,
Okay. All right.
Which is why he's got the drug problem.
Sure.
Because Dad used to try and target him.
Okay, all right. So you both, it sounds like both you and your brother have been through some really significant trauma in your life.
No different than anyone else, I hadn't thought.
Okay, I would have thought that having family violence at
Well, it
a
made
young
me
age.
make sure that, you know, it never came into my house with my children.
Right. I'm just curious to find out whether you ever had any counselling or any help around
no,
that.
nothing.
No, no, and you never thought that it
That
was
was why
something.
when I got my apprenticeship early.
Right.
So to get out of the house,
Okay.
take my little brother with me.
Right, and he came and lived with you.
Yeah, first couple of years.
Okay.
Because Mum had walked out and we couldn't find her.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, that does explain quite a lot, and is helping me to kind of form a bit of a story. Have you ever been attended by an ambulance?
No. Yeah, I had angina a couple of years back.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And so you ended up in hospital?
Yeah.
Okay. How are you now?
Well, fine. I think it was the stress of my wife leaving.
Right. Okay. So that would have been what, about 5 years ago?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. I'm going to ask you a couple of scale questions now. So on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being at the lowest and 10 being at the highest, how would you rate your psychological health right now?
Geez, at the moment, honestly, I'd say 2 or 3.
Okay. That's really low, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's quite.
Well, I have days I don't get out of bed.
Oh, okay. So you feel so low that you really.
Have no purpose in getting up for.
Right. Are you feeding yourself?
Oh, ad hoc.
Right.
You know, it's hard to get the motivation to cook for yourself, especially when you're not feeling good about yourself.
Sure. Are you sleeping?
Well, you know, the hours that I keep are just ad hoc. You know, there's no kind of rhyme or reason to them, so.
Right. So it sounds to me as if you're actually losing the capacity for purpose in your life, and you don't see the point of getting up, you don't see the point of taking care of yourself, of feeding yourself.
Exactly.
And it really, you just don't see the point of anything that's going on in your
Lost
life
interest.
at this point.
Yeah.
And a 2 to 3 would actually reflect that kind of thinking. What would it take, do you think, for you to move to a 3.5?
Have a reason to get up.
Okay. And that would be your kids coming to see you?
Oh,
Or
yeah, definitely.
giving some of your grandkids a bit of a play
Yeah,
date?
definitely.
Yeah? Okay. Let's talk about your physical health again on a scale of 1 to 10. How would you rate your physical health right now?
I'd have to say a 7. So, you know, I'm a fit man, I've always been a fit man, you know, fit in terms of work with our hands and
Sure.
have to be strong, so it's come down a bit probably. No, let's say maybe a 6 because I'm not working for a couple of years, but I still consider myself to be healthy.
Okay. And so what does healthy mean for you?
Being strong.
Yeah? Do you do exercise?
No.
Okay. Did you ever?
Yeah.
What sort of things did you enjoy doing?
I used to play, you know, soccer, and I used to play, you know, football, and you know, I used to walk around a lot with the kids and the dog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
and
it's
fishing, big time fishing, as well as golf.
okay. So there's quite a lot of interests there. There's a lot of
There was, yeah.
sports related things.
There was a lot because of the kids. I could take the kids and
Sure.
teach some kids how to be good people over some sport.
Sure. I guess I've got to ask you, now that your kids are older, what's stopping you from doing that for yourself?
Well, I don't have those social network connections anymore. They're all, you know, intertwined with the schools.
Sure.
and-
Do you know though that all the local councils run adult sporting classes, and there's actually a soccer club up the road for the over 45s. all those men who had hopes of being Ronaldo once upon a
Pretty
time.
intimidating to
Yeah.
come in there though.
Do you think so?
Yeah.
All right. Well, maybe that's something we can work on.
If I went along with someone,
Okay.
I'd probably go and check it out.
All right. All right. Well, again, that's food for thought. Last question on this one. How would you rate your overall quality of life on a scale of 1 to 10?
At the moment, I'd have to say it's a 4 or 5.
Okay. So, a 4 being...
Well, I'm just getting by financially. I'm pretty miserable, depressed. I'm drinking at night until I'm pissed.
Okay.
So, it's not really a great...
Sure. And that's being quite open and honest with me. I really appreciate that. All right. Having mentioned alcohol, let's move into some more specific questions so that I can gauge the type of use pattern that we've got here. So you say that alcohol is your main substance of choice. How often do you have a drink containing alcohol? So it would be monthly, 2 to 4 times a month, 2 to 3 times a week, 4 or more
4 or
times.
more times.
Okay, so every day.
Yeah.
And approximately how much would you be drinking?
3 schooners.
Okay.
Schooners 375 mils.
Okay.
So you're talking about 1.5 long necks a day, sometimes 2.
Okay. All right. And so...
Which I consider pretty high, considering up until I lost my job, I wasn't drinking at all.
At all, at all?
No.
Not even socially?
No. I was always the designated driver and the father that other families could rely on.
Okay. All right. That is quite a leap, isn't it? There's
Well, it's funny because my wife left me for my best mate and he's a drinker.
Right. Okay. And so you...
Maybe he's a bit happier because he's a bit drunker.
The irony does not escape you, no doubt.
No.
So on a regular basis you would have 6 or more drinks on one occasion. Well, actually, if you broke that down, no.
Well, God, if you want to make it legal drinks, it'd be like 12.
Right. Yes. All right. Okay. How often during the last year have you found that you were not able to stop drinking once you started?
Well, I pretty much drink until I fall asleep, pass out type of thing.
So you find the alcohol helps you to sleep?
Well, I don't know about sleeping, it's more passing out, isn't it?
Right. Well, getting some kind of...
The body's telling me it's had enough, so...
Yeah. How often during the last year have you needed a first drink in the morning to get yourself going after a heavy session?
I don't generally drink in the morning, I drink at night.
Okay.
Plus, because I'm finding it hard to get out of bed, I wouldn't really be up for getting up and finding a beer and
Right, okay.
taking it back to bed.
So your consumption is more evenings, but every evening?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. How often during the last year have you had a feeling of guilt or remorse after drinking?
After drinking, I think I have that every time I drink because I'm a father.
Okay. That's really tough, isn't it? That you're revisiting that shame and that guilt pretty much every day.
Considering I spent my life being the man that wasn't going to be that man for my own children.
Well, technically, I guess you could say that you're not. You took your kids through to their adulthoods. So, in actual fact, you were that man. You did do all of the things that you set yourself out to do.
Yeah.
Have you or someone else been injured because of your drinking?
No.
Has anyone, a relative, a friend, doctor, or a healthcare worker been concerned about your drinking and suggested that you cut down?
I don't really see anyone for them to have show concern.
Okay. So, I guess...
Funny though, my brother, who's had everything under the sun, he has voiced his concern a couple of times.
Right. Okay.
Even though he might not be in a fit state when he does it.
Okay. So he's still
'Cause
regularly using?
He's used to me being, we're 2 peas in a pod,
Yeah.
I'm alpha, beta.
Right.
Nothing here, everything there. So for me to...
And he's concerned about
Yeah,
it?
well for me to be drinking.
Yeah.
He's concerned.
Right. He's still using?
Yeah.
Okay, the next round of questions is around other substances. So I guess this is probably going to be quite a short-lived one. How often do you use drugs other than alcohol?
Never.
Okay. How often do you use on more than one occasion? So if you've been drinking, do you ever take a painkiller or
No.
sedative?
No.
No? It doesn't look like there will be any yeses over here. No, I think we can skip over most of this. And we're moving into your mental health now. So I'd just like to ask you a few questions around your mental health. How often, and this is about the last month, so in the last month, how often have you been tired for no good reason?
Oh.
None? A little? All?
Yeah.
How often have you been nervous?
Pretty much all the time.
So nervous that nothing can calm you down?
That would be some of the time.
Okay. And so I guess I'm interested in wondering what does calm you down?
Beer.
Beer. Okay.
Yeah.
Just alcohol?
Yeah.
Exercise?
I don't really do it.
Anymore?
Yeah.
Okay. In the past month, how often have you felt hopeless?
Oh,
Restless? Fidgety?
no. Restless.
Okay.
Most of the time.
Okay.
Restless. Because I used to be working with my hands all the time.
Right,
So
okay.
to not be doing something with my hands.
Okay. So is that something that you would perhaps like to do more of?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah? Okay.
I'm at my happiest
When you're working with your hands, right. Depressed?
Yeah, completely. All the time.
That everything was an effort?
Pretty much most of the time.
Okay. Worthless?
Pretty much most of the time.
Okay. All right. So that, Benjamin, that's a little bit concerning for me. The scores that, particularly in the mental health section, are really, really high. You've scored over 40 in that, and I've got to say I'm really, really worried about you. And also having had the chat with you around some of the things that have taken place for you over the course of your life. It worries me that you are the product of trauma, in that your dad was consistent in his violence towards you and your younger brother. It worries me that you had to take on the responsibility of your brother and to take care of him at a time when you were just growing up yourself, and that your mother wasn't around to be able to help you out. It really concerns me that you didn't, and I understand probably because of your age you didn't seek help or you didn't get counselling because I guess possibly quite often young men didn't do that in those days. And I also wonder, to a degree, the loss or the losses that you've had in your life, starting off with your mum, the absence of a really good nurturing process, your dad not really being in the picture, and only ever being violent and bullying. And then later on in life, once you had your own life pretty much mapped out according to how you wanted it to go, your wife and your best friend leaving, and your job being taken from you. Those are all really significant losses. And it's actually evident in the way that you're feeling right now, how those things have affected you. So I guess my question to you is, what would you like for us to do about your substance use, some of the stuff that you've been talking about with regards to your loss of purpose, your job loss, your relationship breakdowns with your wife and your best friend and some of your kids? What are you hoping to achieve coming here?
I don't know, maybe some sort of strategy or plan to work through those things
Okay.
to lead me out the other side.
Okay. So, do you want to stop drinking, or do you just want to cut back?
I'd like to stop drinking.
Okay.
I
And
haven't
so,
drunk all my life, it's just been these 2 years. And
yeah.
it's something that's still, each time I pick up a glass, it's still foreign to me.
Yeah. But it seems...
And I feel uncomfortable about it, but I need the release that it gives me.
Yeah. And I was just going to say, it seems to me like it's providing a purpose at this point in time. It's giving you the capacity to relax, to sleep, to not think about some of the things that you don't really want to be thinking about. And so I guess what we would have to do is find an alternative for you to be able to get some better sleep, relax, and possibly find some purpose for you.
Yeah, well, I suddenly found myself all alone.
Yes, yes.
I had a full life, and then all of a sudden I was stripped away from me.
That's
And
correct.
then I realised there was nothing left of me.
Yeah. So, in my mind, and I'm going to go away and do a bit of homework, but in my mind it feels like this is a multi-dimensional issue that we need to really be working with. And part of that issue will be around dealing with some of your substance use and how we can dial that back until you're not drinking anymore, because you say that abstinence is what you're looking for. And in other ways, I guess it's about dealing with some of the other things that are going on and have been going on in your life for a significant period of time. So to that end, I think what I'd like to do is give you some homework.
Right.
How do you feel about that?
That's fine.
Okay. I'd like you to go and visit your doctor. I'd like you to get some bloods, check out your overall health. You said to me that you felt that your quality of life was fairly low. And I guess what I'd like to do is start off by knowing how the alcohol has affected you.
Right.
I also wanted to give you a bit of an indication that alcohol, being a central nervous system depressant, is going to make you feel more depressed. So having had a lifetime or quite a significant period of time of depression as a diagnosis.
I think when I first started drinking, I wanted to wallow in that depression.
Yeah, that's quite an astute reflection. And I guess alcohol provides you with the capacity to do that.
But I think I've had enough of the depression.
Great. That's really very positive. When you go and see your doctor, what I'd also like for you to do is to ask him for a mental health plan. Because I think what we need to do as one of the very first things is to provide you with some counselling. And I think that we need to do that so that you can start to explore exactly what it is that you want back in your life and how you can achieve that. Now, this place isn't necessarily the place for that. But I can make that happen for you. I can recommend some really great services, and with your mental health plan from your GP, we can get you at least 6 free sessions, and then we can see how that's working out for you.
Right.
So how does that feel?
That's great.
Okay, we're almost at the end of the session. So what if I make another appointment for us for next week?
Yep.
About the same time, okay?
Yeah, sounds good.
And you can go off and get your doctor's appointment. And we'll come back together again and have a bit of a chat about what took place.
Awesome.
Yeah?
Thanks, Iren.
All right, cool.
Okay.